What is up, y'all? Right now I'm in the commercial hub, basically, of Crystal, Minnesota. It's very complete. There's a lot going on. You may have seen us talk about it in the up-and-comers neighborhood. Nick and I talking about places that we see as being a good value. Crystal is one of those places, and this video is per special request. I hope it's helpful. Crystal has a lot going for it. You're not gonna wanna miss this one. Let's go. How's it going, y'all? My name is Jesse Lynch, and I run the hardest working real estate team in the game. We are called To the Twin Cities, and you can check out our website, tothetwincities.com. But this YouTube channel is all about helping you find a place to land, a place to call home here in the beautiful Twin Cities of Minnesota. And that's whether you're just buying a house for the first time or relocating here from a different city, state, country, planet, whatever. So first time home buyers, relocations, that's what we do, and that's what we do better than anybody else. So if either of those things appeal to you, do us both a favor, subscribe to this channel, click the bell to get notified, give the video a thumbs up, and say what's up in the comments. Appreciate that very, very much. And as always, if you're thinking about moving here to the Twin Cities, do whatever you can to get a hold of us. Fundamentally, two very easy ways to do so. Go to our website, tothetwincities.com. We have a contact form there, super easy, super slick. Or shoot us an email at info@tothetwincities.com. If I'm being honest, they both lead to me. They both lead to the same spot, but however you want to do it, whatever's easiest for you, that's the slickest. You want to call or text, I'm gonna make you go down in the description. I'm not gonna put it on the screen because I'd prefer the email or the website reach out, if I'm being totally honest. But today's video, we're talking Crystal, Minnesota, per special request. And right now, again, I'm in the commercial hub of Crystal, a little bit of a different end of it, but there's pretty much everything a person could ever need in this commercial area. Just within eyeshot, Aldi, Sport Clips, Chipotle, Target, Marshalls, Subway, Starbucks, don't get me started, Dollar Tree, T-Mobile, Tobacco Shop, Popeyes, Deke, Dairy Queen, Wells Fargo, Walgreens. That's just within eyeshot. There's a ton of stuff here. And yeah, you know, Crystal's got a lot going for it. Affordability is a big one, but no more spoilers. Let's go for a ride, and we'll talk about it in just a second. All right, y'all, right now I'm at the Crystal Mac Wildlife area. Right behind me, you can maybe see some of those buildings. That's basically the Crystal Airport, which is a small sort of like municipal airport. You might hear little prop planes flying above me throughout this part, but yeah, this is one of the bigger park spaces in Crystal. But Crystal is not that large of a landmass, and they maintain something like 27 parks within the Crystal area, which is quite good, which is really just to sort of comment on the availability, but they also really do a good job maintaining the parks, whether it's a big park like this, which is, again, kind of the only one I would say of its size, but then there's also so many little neighborhood parks, right? Like a block square park where you can go to a playground, throw a frisbee around, throw a football, play catch, whatever. Those little parks, there's so many of them, 27 again, and I believe the city of Crystal maintains 240 acres of park space, which I wonder what percentage of that this one is, because it is the biggest one. I don't have a dog. If I did, this would be a great place to bring one, go for a run, go for a walk. It's peaceful and not super crowded. That's one thing that I feel like I've been here a handful of times, and there's like hardly ever anybody here. It's nice. So if that's your kind of sort of nature park, nature walk in the city, then this is gonna be a good one for sure. I'm going a little out of order from what I normally do here, but when I think of Crystal, what I think of probably first is the affordability of it. The median sale price is under $280,000 in Crystal, which when compared to the sort of metro area wide, the Twin Cities as a whole, is pushing $350 these days. $270, $280 is super good. And again, that's the median. So when folks come to us and maybe they have a budget of $250, this is one of the spots where you go, okay, that's gonna be something you're gonna wanna check out. Drive the area. Is it what you're looking for? You know, $250 is a fairly limited budget for a single family house in the Twin Cities. So, you know, if you really need the single family, maybe you want the fence backyard, maybe you got a dog, whatever. Okay, cool. You're gonna wanna check out a place like this, and this is so nice. This is kind of where it opens up, and just super nice. I believe that's technically like a lake or a marsh or something. There's sort of a boardwalk going over here. Super pretty, I'm a fan. And with Crystal, you can, yeah, median home price, $280, but you can get stuff, you can find stuff on the market that actually sells for $225, would probably be the lowest, like, inhabitable, maybe 200 inhabitable single family. Might be really small, might be a 2-bed, you know, maybe like a 2-bed, 1-bath. That's like real dated, but definitely livable. Yeah, I would say 200 is gonna be the barrier for entry as far as like a single family is concerned. I'm afraid I'm gonna wipe out on these boardwalks. If you are not from here, these boardwalks, if you're not used to cold, these like wooden sort of, right, paths, they get slippery in the winter because they get not really icy, more of like a frost. It's very slippery. And if you have an even lower budget, but you're okay with like a condo or townhouse, sort of the bottom edge of that is gonna be around 150. And there are some like decent, they're gonna be older, probably 70s or 80s built little condo buildings where you can get something for like 150 for like not too bad of a place. So, you know, depending on what lifestyle you need, I would say it's worth considering. And another fact that I find particularly interesting is that 75% of the folks who live here own the house that they live in or the place that they live in. 75% is one of the higher numbers I've seen for these sort of like cheaper Western suburbs. And cheaper, that sounds almost derogatory, but I don't mean that. I mean, you know, St. Louis Park, Hopkins, Robbinsdale, they're kind of on the lower end. As you get closer to Lake Minnetonka, it all gets very expensive, at which point that statistic no longer applies. It's much higher ownership rates, you know, in the 2nd and 3rd ring suburbs. But then another thing, outside of the affordability, what comes to mind when I think of Crystal are like post-war era homes, just stacked, a bunch of ramblers or story and a halves that just like all over the place. So developments from that era, baby boomer era developments, and you know, a variety of sort of well taken care of-ness, if that makes sense. You can say, I almost slipped there, I don't know if you saw that. Like the huge majority of houses in Crystal are going to be that style of house. So, and if you don't know what I mean by rambler or story and a half, a rambler is also kind of a ranch, story and a half. Usually they look like single stories, but the sort of the roof line contains maybe like a bedroom, sometimes 2 bedrooms, and sometimes maybe a bedroom and a bathroom, or sometimes just like a big sort of like lofted upper story, which a lot of people turn into a bedroom, if I'm being totally honest. As far as location is concerned, you're just sort of to the west of like Minneapolis in general, but you are separated from Minneapolis, I would say, by Robbinsdale. Is geographically, Crystal is located to the sort of northwest of the cities, but just barely on the outside, you know, very much a 2nd ring and like an early 2nd ring suburb. So to the north, you have Brooklyn Park and a little bit of Brooklyn Center. To the east, you have Brooklyn Center almost entirely. To the south, you have Golden Valley, and to the west, you have New Hope. I think the only one of those that we have a video on yet is Golden Valley, but I think all will come. I think next up, or the soonest one that we'll be shooting, will be New Hope. But yeah, so maybe go watch the Golden Valley one. It's a different vibe entirely. Golden Valley is a little more upscale, stuff's more expensive, really close to Theodore Wirth Park, which is a beautiful park. But again, if you lived here, you could definitely go to Theodore Wirth Park and you're not that far from it. And even though Crystal does have an airport, it's very small. Maybe you have access to a corporate plane, like one of you at least out there does, per a comment. But you're still gonna need to go to the MSP airport most of everybody. And you're maybe 25 minutes from there, which also puts you a similar distance to maybe the Mall of America. You're maybe 15 to 20 minutes from downtown Minneapolis. Piece of cake, that's where I came from today. Super easy drive. And then maybe 25-ish minutes or so to downtown St. Paul, maybe a half hour on the high end. And I suppose, again, like always, it depends on traffic, depends on weather conditions, so keep that in mind. I already talked about the housing stock. It's not a particularly diverse housing stock, but it's consistent, and I do really like that era of homes. Basically, 40s through the 60s, they're just well made. They made a lot of them, and they had good, good materials. For one, I like to point this out, there's very often in these ramblers or story and a halves, there's a metal beam that goes through the middle of the floor, which is really when they started using that. And even today, a lot of houses don't have that. So it seems like the houses from the 40s and the 50s hold up very, very well. And the 60s, and especially when even just compared to things from a decade prior, they just seem to be in better shape for the most part. Obviously you can renovate a house from the early 1900s and that can be immaculate, but I would say on average, maybe it hasn't been renovated, but it still seems solid, right? As far as high schools are concerned, you're getting two options, Robbinsdale Cooper and Robbinsdale Armstrong. Cooper gets a B- and Armstrong gets a B. So pretty similar, those are definitely pretty similar numbers, but, and they're okay, but they're not incredible. Again, C+ on average. And the middle schools, you're gonna have a bunch of options that are in that sort of B, B-, C+ range as well, but then there are some schools that serve the Crystal area that get rated worse. So I would say if schools are a priority, just be mindful of which school you're sort of committing to when you move to a certain spot. And one area that Robbinsdale schools absolutely excel is in diversity. It's the 5th most diverse school district in Minnesota, and actually the 78th most diverse school district in the United States, which that's pretty crazy. I mean, you got 50 states, and so if everyone had 2, that'd be out of 100, and this one is 78th. So yeah, I would say like upper 2 percentile of diversity. So there are a lot of folks who are looking for diversity. They're coming from a very diverse area and they're looking for that. And yeah, obviously Crystal has that to offer. But all right, my hands are freezing. I am definitely underdressed, but that's how I roll. It's just one of the earlier winter video shoots that I've done where the weather is this cold. So I'm not quite used to it yet. So I'm gonna go back to the car. We're gonna drive around, show you around Crystal a little bit more. I'll see you in a second. All right, y'all, right now I'm in a neighborhood that I think does a decent job of actually showing a more sort of like diverse housing stock side of Crystal. So this area it's like starts to get a little hillier here. And so I think you start to find more interesting houses. But a lot of Crystal, you're gonna find ramblers and story and a halves that are, just kind of post-war boxes, right? But these look to be a little more of like the 60s era of these homes. And so I would say they start to just get, I don't know, these neighborhoods get a little more interesting and a little less flat, right? Some of the Crystal neighborhoods are just super flat, and you're more likely to find maybe a bunch of houses like that, just row after row after row. Nothing negative about that house. I don't mean to say anything negative about that house. I just mean you're gonna find that repeated a bunch of times, which can get a little bit stale. But obviously, there is more variety in Crystal than just that. There's even some newer built houses in Crystal. Just certain parts of Crystal got developed way later. And yeah, there's some like very nice housing stock for maybe closer to like the $400,000 range, which for how nice of a house they are is actually, and like how new of a house is actually quite affordable again, which is a theme, right? So we're talking pros and cons of living in Crystal. Number one, affordability, right? Like that's what it is. That's one of the biggest sort of attracting factors to why somebody would want to live here. And I would say not just affordable, but like you're getting nice houses for a relatively affordable price. You're getting solidly built homes and they're not going to be trashed. You know, they're going to be generally in good shape. To me, the sweet spot is a house that some old folks have lived in for a long time. They've taken very good care of the mechanicals and the roof and the windows, but maybe haven't updated the inside. Cool. To me, that's the best deal you can find. You can show up, you can paint, you can modernize it for about as cheap as possible, but those mechanicals, the solidity is there. That's probably not a real word, but what do you do? Solidness? That also doesn't seem like a real word. Next pro, great outdoor spaces, like a ton of parks. I think I said 240 acres or something like that of park spaces in not that large of a place. You have like neighborhood parks all over the place, truly all over the place here. Every, I don't know, it feels like every 6 blocks or so, there's like another outdoor space, another park. Next pro for me, you got all the conveniences. You got most of the suburban conveniences that you could ever need. I started the video out in sort of the commercial hub. There's tons of stuff there. And there's truly grocery store, auto stuff. Yeah, it has tons and tons of just those standard sort of staple conveniences that people are kind of looking for. You know, how far is it to drive to a Target or a Cub or whatever, right? And there's tons of that here, and it's all relatively accessible. Next pro, another thing that's accessible is downtown. Downtown Minneapolis is like 20 minutes away. That's a piece of cake, you know? I guess it could be even closer to 15 minutes depending on where you're coming from and where in downtown you're going to. Super close, and yeah, that accessibility is very nice. Maybe you're gonna work in downtown, or maybe you just want the option to be able to work in downtown. Well, cool, I think you'll have no problem with that here. And then last pro for me is going to be that the yard sizes are actually pretty decent for how close into the city you are. You get a decent little piece of land. Like the yards, the backyards are pretty solid. And you know, a lot of these spots, and certainly closer into the city you're getting real small pieces of land. And yeah, for the most part, these houses have decent yards. Like you could play catch in your backyard. They're big enough. You know, some of these, like a South Minneapolis neighborhood or Northeast or something, you're not really gonna be able to do that. Maybe just toss, but not like a real game of catch, you know? Is it a game? I don't know, whatever. But that is gonna actually lead to my first con, which is that the houses here are pretty small. And they're not, honestly, like, they're not too small for most people, but if you want like a, you know, 2,500 square foot house, it's gonna be pretty hard to find that here. You're probably gonna have to look at one of those newer built houses that are here. So for the most part, you're probably looking sub 2,000 square feet, and it's gonna be just kind of small. Again, Rambler, story and a half. Those are going to be the most common here, and on average in the Twin Cities, I would say they're somewhere around 1,500 square feet. But for so many first-time home buyers, that is like the ticket. That's exactly what they're looking for. 1,500 to 2,000 square feet, you know, 3-bed, 2-bath, maybe 3-bed, 1-bath, maybe 4-bed, 2-bath, some combination like that. That's what you're gonna find a ton of here. Next con for me, and I know that this is not gonna be, this is not gonna bug a lot of people, but there's not a lot of like hipness going on here. There's not many cool restaurants and shops. There are some like one-of-a-kind restaurants, a couple like shops that you're not gonna find, but it's not really like, there's not much trendy. And again, like, you can hate on that if you want. Oh, you need trendy. I don't know. I like character. I like people doing interesting stuff. And there's not a ton of that here. You're probably gonna have to leave the Crystal area to find something like that. You know, that's not really what Crystal is all about. Crystal is more about the neighborhood, the park spaces, and that kind of thing. But that said, next con, this neighborhood is very nice. It's very well maintained, yards are well maintained, etc. But there are gonna be some sections of Crystal where that is not quite the case, quite as much. Stuff is just not always like very well maintained here. You're gonna find some houses where you're like, they desperately need a roof, or there's just more trash in their yard than maybe you or I would keep. There is just a little bit of that, little moments of like, I don't know what you would call it, just like a lower pride in ownership at times. But again, there are plenty of neighborhoods here and plenty of houses and a ton of folks who live here who take great care of their stuff. So just something to consider. You are gonna wanna drive the street or whatever, but something to look for when you're actually looking at a house. Another potential con, this street again is kind of not one of those, but I think that kind of shows me that sort of 60s era and later is a lot of these houses. But a lot of the homes here are gonna have detached garages, 1 and 2 car, or if they have an attached, a lot of them are gonna be 1 car. Again, a bunch of these houses are 2 car, right? And so that's cool. I think that's a much more like livable sort of situation. It's easier to resell down the line because a lot of families have 2 cars, you know, or they have a car and they need some storage space or something. So the sort of detached garage, you know, not the end of the world, but something that I find certain people draw a red line. They're like, no, I need an attached garage. Okay, cool. Depends on the neighborhood. I'll just say that. The older part of Crystal, you're gonna have a harder time finding that. And then last, but certainly not least, hey, by the way, there's a park like a block away. What'd I say? Parks everywhere. Last but not least, con for me, certainly not least, this is what I usually start with. Schools. Schools here are just okay. I already talked about it. We're talking B- for the schools that specifically serve Crystal. That's just okay. There's a lot of better schools in this area, but maybe schools aren't of the highest priority to you, at which point, cool. Then you can get a lot of value here for your money. That's pretty much all I got for pros and cons. Actually, real quick, very cute little rambler. That's what I like to see. There's a little bit of a mid-century modern sort of flavor here. There's moments of that. So, but all right, let's go for a ride, shall we? All right, right now I'm at the Crystal Community Center. It's kind of feels like a little bit of a blast from the past. There's like just like a vintage to it or something. Actually, this sign, I think does a pretty good job of showing that vintage. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think it's cool. But there's baseball fields here, little playground. There's a skate park. There's actually like a water park as well. It's just kind of like a quaint little sort of community center park area, and it illustrates more of like the municipal park aspect of Crystal rather than like the wildlife park that I was at earlier. But if I had to sum up Crystal in 3 bullet points, to me it's number 1, affordability. That is like what it's about, right? Just like being able to get a pretty solid house for $280 or less potentially. That's hard to beat, that's hard to find, not just in the Twin Cities, but obviously from probably a lot of the places that y'all are coming from. $280 is a steal. But then, you know, you don't also sacrifice like lifestyle, right? So to me, the next bullet point is like pretty balanced lifestyle. For one, you have plenty of conveniences from the suburban aspect, right? You have grocery stores, Target, you know, little strip malls, like interesting kind of one-of-a-kind shops, and restaurants. I will say that you're not exactly like, it's not going to be full of character, right? Like those shops, sorry, the lighting is just better this way. Those shops, like those one-of-a-kind shops, are not exactly like the hippest spots, right? But maybe that doesn't matter to you. Maybe being close enough to certain areas where you can get that sort of hipness, maybe that's cool. Maybe that's plenty for you. But then not just those, these park spaces, right? That's a balance of life. So the sort of conveniences, but then just sort of like the, I don't know, the livability of a place that is just filled with park spaces and, you know, small green spaces. That's just, to me, that's like such a huge factor in lifestyle of where you're moving. You know, is it just house, 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 business, 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 or is there like a nice mix of house, green space, you know, open spaces and businesses? And then last bullet point, I'm gonna say just decent schools. I think that's a huge factor in why the home prices here aren't, you know, higher than they are. It's just the schools are just okay. And that's true of the likes of Robbinsdale as well. You know, they're okay. So if, you know, getting the best schools is a huge priority to you, then Crystal's not going to be the spot. But as far as your money goes, $280, there's some of the better schools that you're going to be able to find with a purchase price of $280, especially a median home price of $280. And if you watch these videos, you know that I have a little section I call For Fans Of, which is to say, if you like what you see here, then maybe check out some of these other spots, right? And the more videos we do, the more I can say, we have a video on that, we have a video on that, we have a video on that, and that's super nice. By the way, here is the water park. So For Fans Of, basically, if you like what you see here, check out these other spots, or maybe you've been to some of the other spots, at which point maybe that will help you understand what it feels like here in Crystal a little bit better. Make sense? Okay, for me, I'm gonna say the top two For Fans Of are gonna be Robbinsdale. That's probably pretty obvious. I've already mentioned it like 2 times, at least in this video. So Robbinsdale and then New Hope. I would say geographically, they're very, very close together, basically contiguous to one another. And overall, the feel is fairly consistent. New Hope, a little newer. Robbinsdale, a little older, okay? It's just kind of the path of progress. As you head out from the city, that's how it goes. The things further away were built more recently, and so forth. Obviously, Robbinsdale, you're actually gonna get Robbinsdale schools. New Hope is gonna have, I think, a different set of schools, but I don't remember what that school district is. Ooh, I'm gonna sneak through here. Yeah, we're in the baseball diamond now. And then next up, 2 places that I think are geographically quite separated from here, but have very similar vibes. So maybe you don't wanna be, you know, on the western side of the metro. Maybe you have stuff going on, or family or work or something. On the eastern side, cool. I would say check out, and you like what you see here. You like the prices, you like sort of the lifestyle. I would say check out Maplewood and check out Oakdale. One thing that comes to mind is that Maplewood actually has, I think, the second or the single most diverse school district in Minnesota. So if that's something you're looking for, Maplewood ought to be good for that. And I would say that Oakdale just has some similar properties overall. It's just a very similar vibe to here, just on a different end. And then likewise, if you want to be south of the metro, I think the closest thing to Crystal is going to be Richfield. Don't have a video on that yet. I do intend on making one. It's just kind of small, but a lot of the same sort of like same housing stock. It's going to be a little bit more expensive. Schools are going to be maybe slightly better, but similar in a lot of regards. But you're just going to be on, you know, the totally opposite side of the metro. Again, maybe you work at the Mall of America, maybe you work at the airport, something like that. Richfield's going to be a very good spot. Almost got stuck in that baseball diamond. Not really, but no matter what it is, no matter where you're into, maybe you're watching this and you're like, this for sure is not the place for me. That's cool. You know, it's not gonna be for everybody. And likewise, some of the more expensive spots we do are not gonna be for everybody. Partially because the vibe just isn't there, or maybe it's just literally unaffordable. But no matter where it is, no matter where you're thinking, just get a hold of us and we would love to walk you through it. We'd love to say, okay, if you like this spot, give you a more varietal for fans of, right? What are you looking for in a spot? Cool, here are 10 options that could potentially suit you. Or maybe you want to just laser focus on a certain spot. We'll help you find a house there. Promise. So get a hold of us however you can. Go to our website, tothetwincities.com, fill out a little contact card there, super easy, or shoot us an email at info@tothetwincities.com. They both lead to me. I look forward to hearing from you. And you know, we look forward to showing you around, helping you find a house here. The team has been absolutely killing it. Shout out to those dudes. Every now and then, I just do these videos on my own because they are busy helping folks like you get into a house. And these videos take a bunch of time. So it's so nice to be able to really focus on that and focus on running the team. Shout out to the team, Steve, Nick, Alex. And as always, as you exit the video, please do so safely. Subscribe to the channel, click the bell to get notified, give the video a thumbs up, and say Crystal Pepsi in the comments. Maybe how about Crystal Pepsi ? Crystal Pepsi. And that's it, send it, okay? First person who does that gets a thumbs up from me. All right, y'all, appreciate you watching this. We did it, Crystal, Minnesota. Hope you've enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.